Hey guys, JDR Exospace here, and we have yet another whistleblower that has come forward with some wild details, so I'm just going to jump right into the story. A former Marine claims he and 5 comrades saw a flying saucer being loaded with weapons while serving in Indonesia in 2009 and was threatened at gunpoint by unmarked U.S. forces at the scene. The wild story comes after an Air Force whistleblower, this is David Grush, from the government's UFO office, joined growing numbers of intelligence officials claiming the U.S. has recovered and has even reverse engineering crashed or landed non-human spacecraft. Michael Herrera, this is the new whistleblower that's come forward, was a 20-year-old rifleman sent on a Navy humanitarian mission during the 2009 Sumatra earthquake and tsunami that devastated the region. In an exclusive interview with DailyMail.com, he claims that while guarding an airdrop of aid supplies outside the city of Padang in October of that year, his 6-man unit stumbled across a hovering octagonal craft in apparent use by clandestine U.S. forces. Now here's the crazy part about this story. When him and his 6-man unit encountered this UFO, it wasn't piloted by aliens. This is a sketch of what he saw, and he was able to describe it in actually really vivid detail, and really it confirms a lot of the other testimony that we've seen about UFOs and some of the ways that it was designed. The craft was rotating in a clockwise motion while changing colors. It had an audible hum to it, like the sound of a transformer or a guitar amp. It was an octagonal shape with a pyramid at the top of it that was black. After 14 years of silence, Herrera was emboldened by new UFO whistleblower protections and in April testified under oath to the government's UFO investigation team, ARROW. Now, I've already told you guys, some of the new whistleblower changes that have been passed by Congress, these are monumental. This is going to be a tide shift. You're going to see a lot more people like this guy coming forward because now they have legal protection from the government from retaliation. This is very, very important, and this is why I think the dam is breaking. He provided his unblemished 4-year service record and texts about the incident with an alleged fellow witness who refused to talk, saying it was not worth my life or jeopardizing my family. Peripheral aspects of his account were verified by DailyMail.com using military sources, but Herrera 33 does not have documentation or photos of the incident itself. When a 7.6 magnitude earthquake struck Sumatra on September 30th, 2009, his 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines Echo Company 2nd Platoon was rerouted to help guard helicopter aid drops around Padang City, beset by violence from local insurgents. Around October 8th, he and 5 Marines were dropped off at a clearing in the northeastern part of the city by a CH-53 chopper and hiked 900 feet up a ridge to take their positions for the incoming supply drop. It was then that he spotted a strange object in the jungle on the other side of the hill. Okay, now the really crazy part about this now is Michael Herrera just recently gave an interview that was released on a YouTube channel. Now, I don't know if you guys have checked out Sean Ryan's show on YouTube. I actually just discovered this. He seems to be very big into like military content. But he's releasing a 3-part whistleblower story that we're going to be following very closely. But this first one in the series is Michael Herrera. Now, in typical fashion of a real truth seeker, this guy, Sean Ryan, has made all of his content available for us other YouTubers to comment on and share with you. So I'm going to be showing some clips. And right now I'm going to get into the first clip where Michael Herrera himself describes the incident.
And that's when I started seeing the key details of this thing. Like it had like a scale pattern on it, kind of like an octagonal, because the craft itself was like an octagonal shape where you could see points. It had like these vents on every single corner on the middle part of these the panels anyway. There was like a Vanta black. It was like a dark black that would like absorb light.
So right after taking the position for this incoming supply drop, it was then that he spotted this strange object in the jungle on the other side of the hill. I could see something moving and rotating. It was changing colors between a very light matte gray to a very dark matte black, he said. It stuck out like a sore thumb. Oddly, he said, they had not been given radios, so instead of calling it in, they edged down the hill in formation to investigate, while Herrera snapped photos and video on his old Panasonic camera. Describing the UFO, and here's another artist rendition of it. Describing the UFO, he says the thing was massive, the size of a football field. The craft was rotating in a clockwise motion while changing colors. It had an audible hum to it like the sound of a transformer or a guitar amp. It was an octagonal shape with a pyramid at the top of it that was black. It had scales that were on the outside of the craft that covered the entire craft. It had seams and sharp edges, which I suspect to be man-made. Nothing on it was smooth. It had some panels on the vertical edges that were like Vanta black. Now, this is a really interesting story because Michael Herrera doesn't actually describe seeing any aliens. He describes seeing a UFO with quasi-military support personnel. Herrera claimed that when he and his 5 comrades got within 150 feet of the craft, they were ambushed by 8 men wearing all-black camouflage, bulletproof vests, wielding info rifles with high-end night vision attachments given to elite troops. And here's the second clip we're going to play for you of Michael Herrera describing getting ambushed by these guys.
When we trekked down and got around 150 to 200 meters from it, all of a sudden we were engaged, at least not in a hostile manner, at least, not gunfire or firefight or anything like that. But the way that these guys moved was so fluid, it was so still, it was very, very, very smooth. And the gear that they had was black OTV vests. They had black camouflage utilities.
What you're saying is there would have been no they were professionals.
Yeah, and that's when you kind of picked up the hum that this object was doing, along with these guys flipping their safeties off, especially M4s. You know, it's very distinct sound. And they started yelling at us. You're not supposed to fucking be here. What the fuck are you guys doing here? Who the fuck are you with? At one point, they said they were going to smoke us. They could throw us out of a helicopter. It's very easy to get lost in the jungle out here. You know, they kept saying stuff like that. They're having two guys watch while there's a guy basically taking our magazines out of our vest. They actually knew where our military IDs were because in Marine Corps order, you have to have them in your left breast pocket. So as they're searching us, we're watching this thing happen. And that's when we started seeing trucks come from our left and go onto this platform. And they were up armored 350s. I know exactly what 350s are.
As the men continued to threaten them, they took the Marines' weapons, dumped their ammunition, and scanned their military IDs. Herrera said he saw others loading large weapon cases and other containers from modified Ford F-350 trucks onto a platform beneath the craft. When the last two trucks finished unloading and drove off, the lower part of the platform rose off the ground to about 10 feet, and the craft lowered to meet it, and it came together into one piece. On the corners of the craft, it had lights that were changing between blue, red, yellow, and green. It rose off the ground and a little past the trees, then shot off to our left towards the ocean at around 4,000 miles per hour. We can't believe this is effing happening. From a dead stop, it didn't make any sound like a sonic boom. It didn't disturb the trees like rotor wash would. We could see coconuts on the trees and none of them were disturbed. Herrera said the 8 unmarked soldiers gave them back their unloaded guns and marched them back over the hill, still telling us how they could kill us.
You know, they're as this is going on, they're talking shit, they're looking at us, they're taking pictures, they're doing, you know, everything that they're trying to do to clear us. So as we turn this, and all of a sudden, I see a sling pass over my head. I'm like, oh fuck, they're gonna strangle me. But that wasn't the case. They actually tightened it so well that when they placed it, and you know, it's crossbody, and obviously the buttstock of the rifle is up on the right shoulder and the muzzle's kind of more towards your left. And they tightened the sling so well that if you try to get it off, it's going to struggle. And they started putting the magazines in, and they put all 6 of them in our vest, but they put it in a way that wasn't tactile. They put them like right side up where you can see the brass, right? Because brass to the grass is usually what we always trained our Marines to do. They did in the case it'd be tactical. It wouldn't be a tactical advantage to do that. So by the time you get your weapon off, try to put a magazine in and charge it, you're already going to get smoked.
Well, now here the Daily Mail included his honorable discharge papers, so here they are. This guy actually did serve in the SEALs like he said he did. The 6 Marines ran back to the A-drop site and were scolded by their gunnery sergeant for returning early, Herrera said, adding that they all kept quiet about the disturbing encounter. I was effing scared, Herrera said. I was thinking I could have been killed. How the hell am I going to explain this? Back on the USS Denver, Herrera's unit were debriefed by a rear admiral he didn't recognize. He said it was odd to have such a high-ranking officer there, and again, none of them mentioned the saucer and unmarked troops. A few days later, they were docked in Subic Bay in the Philippines, the Marine said. After an evening of drinking with his colleagues, he returned to find his camera's card and battery removed from his locked locker, along with his 5 comrades' phones missing. In early December 2009, he was back at Camp Hansen in Okinawa, Japan. He was told to report to the office where he found an Air Force lieutenant colonel in full uniform but no name tag. He starts telling me, "You're not allowed to talk about what happened, not to your chain of command, not even a general. You will go to prison or you will die." Wild. The only thing I can recall is that it said TS, SCI, top secret, sensitive compartmented information, and it had Indonesia on it. The rifleman said he signed and was told to get the F out of there. I ran back to the barracks and haven't talked about it ever since. It's something I've kept secret for almost 14 years, but I've thought about it every single day. He left the Navy in October 2011, his certificate of release showing 4 years of active duty and medals for National Defense Service, Global War on Terrorism Service, Humanitarian Service, Sea Service Deployment, and a Sharpshooter Rifle Badge. Herrera made several $1 million as an entrepreneur and now runs a private security company called Valkyrie Eye. New UFO whistleblower protections enacted in December prompted the ex-Marine to finally tell a story. Okay, now here is where we get to a notable change in the tone of this story. They're not really talking about Michael Herrera anymore, and even in the interview on the Sean Ryan show, he claims that when he talks to the Daily Mail, he didn't really tell him anything about Stephen Greer or about some of the narrative that's created at the end of this story in the Daily Mail, and he wasn't particularly happy about it. But I'm going to go over it because it's relevant to the story. Herrera said in 2017 he met UFO activist Dr. Stephen Greer at a conference, and Greer helped persuade him to talk and connected him with congressional and Aero staffers earlier this year. The ex-Marine claims his 5 former comrades are too scared to come forward. In a May 3rd text message, one wrote, "This is asking too much of me and it's not worth the risk. It's not worth my life or jeopardizing my family. I know we go way back, but this is asking too much. You need to get out of whatever you are in and don't get me involved with this mess. My career isn't worth helping you. Don't ask me to do this shit ever again." DailyMail.com verified the sender was a Marine serving in the same unit in 2009. It sounds a bit like science fiction. Okay, this is where we get into Stephen Greer. So pretty much anybody that's followed the UFOs or UAPs is aware of Stephen Greer. I have some mixed opinions on Stephen Greer to say the least, but let's continue. It sounds a bit like science fiction, but it actually is science fact, Greer told Daily Mail. These breakthroughs have been kept very, very secret, much to the detriment of the American people and the planet. We feel it's very important that the public understand this is not just a silly story about little green men. This has very significant implications for the environment, for energy independence, for global poverty. Greer and his organization, the Disclosure Project, gained international attention as well as derision in 2001 when he gathered 20 retired Air Force, Federal Aviation Administration intelligence officers at the National Press Club to tell their stories of extraordinary UFO and alien encounters. The 2001 conference did not spark congressional hearings as Greer had hoped. Leslie Kean, which you may remember was the journalist that brought forward and broke the David Grush story, said that she was skeptical of Greer's approach in an interview with the New Yorker in 2021. There were some good people at that conference, but some of them were making outrageous, grandiose claims. I knew then that I had to walk away. And this is where the article is kind of getting to, it's almost turning into a hit piece on Stephen Greer and trying to discredit some of the things that Michael Herrera is bringing forward. And this is, I think, understandably why he was so upset in this interview with Sean Ryan. And apparently even David Grush doesn't want to be tied to Stephen Greer anymore. So he apparently said to Vinnie Adams, this UFO journalist, "I took my job very seriously, and early on I allowed various individuals that alleged they had information to speak their truth as part of my evaluation process. I have not been mentored by anyone, and my public disclosure has been done independently under my own free will. I emphatically request that Stephen Greer cease using my name to promote his personal agenda." Continuing about Stephen Greer, the former ER doctor spent the 2 decades following his 2001 press conference collecting UFO witnesses and has now assembled a database of 746 people in or related to the U.S. government. Some have detailed and compelling stories and have even testified to ARROW. Others are merely senior officials who made public statements acknowledging the possibility of UFOs having non-human origins. According to the database, 76 of them have passed away. He will also be unveiling a Disclosure Project intelligence archive with over 5 terabytes of government documents, whistleblower testimony, specific locations of illegally operated UFO projects. Greer has become a controversial figure even among UFO enthusiasts, making disputed claims and charging up to $3,500 for group sessions where he purports to teach and perform summonings of extraterrestrials using psychic powers. Okay, this is where I want to step in here. Because like I said already, I think Stephen Greer is a controversial figure for many reasons. I think Stephen Greer, from what I've seen of him so far, believes in some pretty crazy stuff. Okay, it's pretty out there. And some of the things that he claims about having to, like remote viewing capabilities with aliens and being able to take people out there and see UFOs, that's nonsense. However, he has been in this field for several decades, and I do believe that he has around him several people that have seen real things, this Michael Herrera being one of those people. And the things that Michael Herrera is saying doesn't really seem to be all that crazy. However, there is one thing that he said in his interview in which he alleges ties to human trafficking from this UFO encounter.
But they had weapon cases in the back of each truck bed. And then they had a shipping container thing. I mean, it looked like a shipping container, but smaller and half the size. For years, I thought, okay, like, there's got to be oxygen supply or like a vacuum sealing thing that you would, because obviously I'm thinking it's drugs. I was like, okay, so this is a very advanced way to do that. Just years of thinking of this. Come to find out, when I gave my speech in D.C. on that Saturday for the Disclosure Project with Dr. Greer, this gentleman, I'm not going to give any detail. I know a little bit about him. He's aware of what was going on. He confirmed, he says, no, he's like, I don't want to leave Michael hanging out there, but I was not expecting to come and talk to you about this. And he says, there's not drugs that they're putting in these shipping containers. He says it's humans.
Now, the thing I had to point out is he did not actually see any evidence during this UFO encounter he claims directly of human trafficking. Now, what he's saying is that many years later, after believing that this was related to the drug trade, someone in a closed-door congressional setting told him that it was actually human trafficking and testified to this. Now, we have to take that with a grain of salt because this is not necessarily a first-hand account of why this UFO was there or what they were doing, but it is relevant to the story, and that is what Michael Herrera believed happened. And I do believe that it's extremely important for whistleblowers to feel comfortable coming forward. You have to realize that when they do this, they open themselves up to a ton of scrutiny, and there really is no financial gain. And even in this interview, Michael Herrera was very adamant that he really had nothing to gain from coming forward like this. So in order to do Michael Herrera justice, I'm going to end this video not with my own commentary, but allowing Michael Herrera to justify why he's coming forward himself in his own words.
What's going on is not acceptable. And this is just a fast of corruption. It may not be the political corruption that's coming out now that people are witnessing with their own eyes. People call them conspiracy theories. What I'm hoping to achieve is to get other people on board to understand that the government supports what we're doing, because they were in the dark about this too. And now they're coming out and they're actually putting the hammer down. Recent bills have been passing as far as the legislation through the Senate Intelligence Committee saying that these corporations have to give the goods here in 6 months or else there's going to be some consequences they're going to face either through the judicial system, which obviously the government's got a lot of weight with that. The other aspect of it too is that they're going to ban these companies from doing contracting work for the government, which means they're going to lose billions of dollars. They're going to go broke. So I'm hoping that they actually comply with this measure because one, this technology is going to help benefit humanity as a whole. Not in a militaristic sense, because that's just foolish. It's more to help out humanity, because now everybody's going to be on the same level technology-wise.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. And if you haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do so. I am this close to getting monetized, and I just need your help getting over that threshold so I can actually get paid for bringing these videos to you. I appreciate you guys' support, and I will catch you on the next one.